I was excited to wear my grandmother's wedding dress. That was, until my cousin decided to ruin my best day ever. My wedding was supposed to be the most special day of my life, but it all turned into a nightmare because of my jealous cousin. All that she did on my wedding day broke my heart, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. I could clearly see that she was doing it on purpose, but her mom defended her to the very end, and I could not do anything about it. But her chance for a wedding came, and I used that opportunity to extract revenge in the most poetic way possible. The issue started when I, female 28, announced to my family I was getting married. Everyone in the family was so happy for me, and the wedding arrangements began. Wanting to make sure that everything went well at my wedding, and furthermore, in my marriage. My mom made sure to engage in as many traditions as possible. This included having something old, new, borrowed, and blue belief, which I did not mind. I was going to buy a dress, but my mom asked me to see if maybe I could have my grandmother's dress altered and wear it in honor of her. She'd had a long battle with cancer and eventually succumbed to her illness. Her death was still fresh in the family's memory because she's been so loved, with good reason. I saw nothing wrong in maybe repurposing the dress for something else. But that started drama when I announced I wanted to wear the wedding dress and have it altered for my wedding. My cousin, Jennifer, who's 26, was not a fan of the idea and tried to discourage me from wearing the dress. Even though the dress was a bit older, there was something about it that was still breathtaking, and I saw how she looked at it with envy. But I was set on that wedding dress, which was what I told her, and I did not need to sound off as condescending, but I did tell her that we did not know when she was going to ever get engaged, so in the meantime, I'll wear the dress, and then we could alter it for her wedding. She said, though, she would not be caught dead wearing hand-me-downs, especially from me, just because I got married first. She said it's not fair that I was always getting preferential treatment and could not let go of that one thing. But for me, wearing that dress was the closest I would get to having my grandmother with me at the wedding, so it was a no-go for me. Ultimately, the family took my side and said I would wear the dress because, well, I was older than her and would get married first. She did not speak to me for days after the decision was made, and started speaking very poorly about me. I did not want to fight with her, but she was being unreasonable. I told her that she could still wear the dress and we would have it altered in such a way that no one could even recognize it. I told her to get that it would not make me happy for my wedding to be something that would be putting a rift between us. In the end, she came around and slowly started participating in the wedding preparations. But I had no idea she was faking it. It would only be one day of the wedding that she would exact this revenge on me in the most humiliating way possible. If it had been up to her, I would have never got married at all on that day. The day started normal. Well, as normal as a wedding could be. I was in a hotel close to the venue, with my bridal squad as well as my makeup artist. Then the time came for me to put on my wedding dress. I felt so beautiful in it. I could just imagine how happy my grandmother would have seen. Some of the bridal party, including my cousin, were having pre-drinks in my room before the wedding. As I was looking in the mirror, someone tapped me on the shoulder. When I turned around, I felt a cold liquid go all over my body, right to the bottom of the dress. All I saw was a deep red color, and I smelt the unmistakable scent of red wine. On the floor was a shattered bottle of red wine, and the remainder was seeping into my dress. And guess who was standing in front of me, with a look of fiend horror on her face? Everyone went quiet with shock in the room. Who would blame them? I was unable to move or believe what I was seeing. It was barely an hour to my wedding. There was no dress. I did not know whether to laugh or cry. So I started doing a bit of both. But all she could do was try to give me stupid excuses. She tried to take a towel to wipe me, but I took the towel and threw it in her face. I knew she did it on purpose because she was hurt over the dress. But that did not matter because I did not have a dress to wear at the ceremony, and it was starting soon. I could not stop crying. It felt a lot like the world had ended, and the only thing I could smell was red wine. Eventually, they calmed me down. I'm so grateful for my mother, who got on a call with a friend of hers who owned a bridal shop, and quickly got me a replacement to rent for the day. If it was not for my mother's quick thinking, then I would not have a wedding on that day. The ceremony started much later, but at least I had something to wear. Despite that little mishap, I cheered up once I walked down that aisle and I got to marry the love of my life. It did not matter what I was wearing as long as I married my best friend. My cousin was still at the wedding because I could not just kick her out. After all, it was an accident. But she stayed out of the way most of the time. Way before cutting the cake, we went outside to take some pictures, but that was cut abruptly short by the caterers telling me that the kids were eating my cake. My mood was just improving when the worst possible thing happened. When I got to the cake, there was not a lot left. There was a group of guilty-looking kids who were stuffed full of the freshest icing on my cake. I was overcome by the anger and so many other emotions. People tried to make a humorous situation for it, but I was already upset about the dress. I could not handle it. At that point, I ran away to get some fresh air. I cried until there was no more tears left. I wondered what I've done to deserve such a day of misfortune, and I wondered if it would reflect on my marriage. Nothing had been working at all that day, and I was frustrated to no end. I was not part of my own wedding for the next couple of hours, even though people kept on calling me and offering their support. I eventually went back to the hotel room where I sulked for the rest of the day. When it was time for me and my husband to go on our honeymoon, he came to pick me up and we left the mess that was our wedding. He did not want to talk about what happened, and I did not ask, because I wanted to erase the entire day from existence. But get this, my mom interrogated those kids until they spilled the beans. She found out that my cousin was the one who told them they're allowed to eat the cake. They're young kids, they're gullible, they did what she said, not understanding that it was wrong. I could have come out with the information and confronted her, but I told my mother not to tell anyone. I did not want to start drama in the family because I knew that the chances of me winning were very low. This was 2 years before my cousin was getting married, so you can imagine that I was thinking when she announced that she was getting married. It felt unfair that she could have a wedding with no drama while mine was still in the family event of the decade. No one said it to my face, but my wedding was a circus that no one could forget. I'd been obsessing over what happened for so long, knowing that when her day came, I would teach her a lesson. An eye for an eye, and a ruined wedding for a ruined wedding. So I pretended as if I was happy for her, but I knew she would not trust me, which was why I got to work trying to make her wedding perfect. I told her I did not want her to have a disaster like mine did, and she ate it up. I was on my best behavior throughout her wedding preparations, and she truly thought I'd forgotten about the past and moved on. But there was no way I was going to forget how bad I felt on that day. I hated that day. That day was supposed to be the best day of my life, all because of her jealousy. My mom had come up with a very simple but effective plan to make sure it would be a day to remember. And I must say that she was very paranoid about things not working out at the wedding. She micromanaged everything, even going as far as to ban red wine in her room. The poor simple girl thought I was going to do just like her, ruin the dress. But she had nothing to worry about. Her dress was safe. Her water, on the other hand, was not safe. While she was getting ready, my mom slipped some laxatives into her water bottle, making sure that no one saw her. I also made sure to be away from the room when she was doing it, to make sure it was at least someone suspected me being involved. When she started walking down the aisle, she seemed to be fine, but I caught her pausing for a second while she was halfway through. Then she was saying her vows. She had a very uncomfortable look on her face and appeared to be sweating a bit. People started to whisper, wondering, is she okay? The priest had to pause and asked if she was feeling unwell, but she gritted her teeth and went on saying her vows. She started shifting from foot to foot, side to side, and clutching her stomach. And when her husband said they could stop if she was feeling unwell, she snapped at him. I did not miss the look of annoyance that went through her mother-in-law's face. At that point, I just needed some air so I could laugh at what was happening to her, but I had to bite my cheeks to keep from bursting out laughing. Then, right when the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," a sound that can only be described as a thunder could be heard. She had a look of utter panic on her face, pushing the groom out of her way and running. I'll not even try to describe the scent she left behind in a trail. It was terrible. Some people snickered while others full-on howled with laughter. Worst of all, they were her friends, whom she liked to brag about. They looked like they just seen what happened, and it was perfectly clear what had happened. I could not do it anymore. I had to go out for some air so I could laugh in my own little peace. It went even better than expected. I did not think she would make it even to exchange the rings, but she had been determined to get married. She was out of commission for the rest of the night, as no one could get her a meter away from the toilet. Everyone had fun in her absence, taking pictures, enjoying the cake. I made sure to take lots of pictures and send them to her. My own little way of rubbing it in her face. My husband saw how happy I was and was like, quote, "Yeah, you're enjoying this a little too much." But I acted as an innocent newborn baby. Her mom was running up and down trying to make remedies to soothe her stomach, but she was out for the rest of the wedding. Whenever I passed by where she was, she would be screaming at whoever was trying to help her out, as if it was their fault. My sister knew what she has done at my wedding, and she did not hesitate to let it be known that it was karma coming to bite her. As for her husband, the poor guy was miserable, and there was nothing anyone could do. I did not know him that well, but he seemed like a very calm guy. He did not want to take photos without her, and spent the rest of the wedding drinking. Everything was cut short, and some ceremonies were skipped, so all we did was eat food and drink. He eventually left, and only his family remained. The elders in our family were pretty sure that it was some sort of bad luck. Since my wedding had been ruined, others even thought that it was because of this incident with the dress, that maybe she was intentionally spilling the wine. I did nothing to defend her or stop the speculations, because at last, people suspected her. She had destroyed a precious family item by causing irreparable damage to the dress. I'll always remember my wedding as one without a dress and a cake. And she was going to remember hers as one without herself. By reception, the bride and groom were nowhere to be found. It was just guests having fun. She'd gone home to get some rest, but they had to postpone their flight because she was too weak to make it. I went to get the next morning, and she looked like she's been through hell and back. She said her wedding was the worst day ever, and that she wished she could forget, but was not the worst part. Several people had live streamed footage. Yep, the entire thing. They posted it all over social media, so now people were making fun of her virally. It was not just because people or her friends as well who were dragging her and calling her names. Some of the names were pretty funny and fit the situation. But it turns out I was not the only person who was unimpressed when she had been a total bridezilla. She was already having fallouts with many people because her wedding gift registry was super expensive. She had even made her bridesmaids pay for their own dresses, which was something that they were bitter about. And once people started coming forward with their stories about all she had done to them, it was a free-for-all. She suspected that someone had tampered with her food. But who, when everyone hated her? Compared to her wedding, mine now seemed like a little paradise. At least I've gotten pictures of my wedding. She did not even have one picture besides camera phone shots, which provided that she got married. It was truly worth the wait to see her even more miserable than I was. If only she had not been so jealous of me and tried ruining my wedding day. She would not have been embarrassed like this. For days, she would be the talk of the town, and the story still brought tears to everyone's eyes. She cut off many friends who made fun of her situation, which was everyone who was there. As for me, there's no love lost between us. We tolerate each other at family events. I know she suspects me and my mom, but she has literally zero proof. If she ever dares to come at me for what happened, I know what she did at my wedding, so I believe that makes us even. Okay guys, I just have one question for you about this story. Who got the most revenge? OP or the cousin? I want to know which one was more disastrous and which wedding had the biggest toll. Drop it down below, and let's take this second to hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying this, just know it helps out the channel so much. So take a second to just press that button, and here comes the final story of the day. So my wife, 32 female, and I, 34 male, have been together for 8 years. We have a little girl and a baby boy. I love both of them more than anything, and I finally feel like I have everything. A beautiful wife, 2 healthy kids, a great career, a big house. The token American dream. Minus the dog since, well, I'm allergic. When we talked about kids before, my wife always said she wanted 2. I only want 1. It would be easier if we had more money for vacations and stuff, but my wife maintained it's important for a child to have a sibling. I grew up with 4 and my wife with none, so I guess I understand where she's coming from. After our son getting through the baby years and sleepless nights for the second time, I did not want to ever go through that again. Both kids were very fussy and colicky, but when he was a year old, my wife began casually mentioning a third. I would laugh it off, but finally she sat me down and said we have to have a third. I said no. We agreed on 2, but she said she wanted 4, and 3 is the compromise. I refused and said I wanted 1 and we had 2. She got angry, called me selfish for taking away her dream of wanting a big family. A couple days later, she apologized and we had sex. I noticed her drive increased exponentially, but so did mine. I was so happy to engage her. She was on birth control, I had a condom, it was all good. Thinking back on it, I probably should have figured something was up. But I was barely handling 2 children and work, on top of housework and yard work and everything. I came home from work one day, while the kids were at their grandparents'. My wife had a huge smile on her face as she sat me down and showed me a positive pregnancy test, literally dancing in joy. My first thought was, oh shit. My wife noticed a less than happy expression on my face and started screaming at me. She berated me for not supportive and being supportive of her, and this was a miracle from God. I should be grateful. I said I was sorry and hugged her and said I was super excited for the baby. My wife was delighted, and later that night, she was calling all family and friends to happily tell them the good old news. When she was talking about the nursery and how we'll convert my office into a room, I started to get a little suspicious. Everything was so well thought out. It seemed like she's been planning this for a while. When she was asleep, I took the condoms out of the cupboard and ran them underwater. Holes. I nabbed her phone and saw she set a password. That was odd. Nevertheless, my wife has a terrible memory, so I tried her birthday, and bada bang bada boom, it opened. Further up were text messages with her best friends of my wife, complaining how I would not come around. Her best friend suggesting arranging an accident, with a little winky face. My wife agreed and said she was going to come off birth control. It went on for a little while, ending with my wife saying that yes, we're going to have a third. So I woke her up immediately and asked her if this had really been a miracle. She got that deer in headlights look and burst into tears. She wailed and wailed, then she got angry. Through tears, she screamed I had no right to go through her phone, and it's her choice whether or not she wants to take birth control. The side effects are bad and she was sick. She also brought up if I really did not want a third kid, I should have a vasectomy. She told me to go sleep on the couch. I laughed out loud and said, no, I'm sleeping here, you're leaving. So while wailing, she packed a bag and left to her parents. When she called me the next day, I told her I just need some time to myself. She said that's fine, but I need to come around for our child. I told her I wasn't sure if it'd be our child, and she cried even more. It's been 2 weeks since then. Governments recommended stay at home, and I knew staying home by myself while also working with 2 kids would not be ideal. And, well, she wanted to see our kids. So we're in the same house. She constantly keeps on stopping me, trying to get me excited for our kid, planning the nursery, names, how happy our kids will be to get a younger sibling. I've been ignoring her entirely. What do I do? Staying in home with her is bad enough, and I don't know if I should leave her over this. I don't trust her anymore. She's entirely betrayed. I'm angry, but I have another child on the way. So here's one of the top comments. This is a huge betrayal by your wife, and honestly, could have been a deal breaker leading to divorce. Having a child is a big emotional, physical, and financial decision that should involve 2 partners. She's selfish, entitled, and manipulative. Guys, I would have to agree, that was definitely betraying the trust. I want to know your thoughts on it though, so always drop your comments down below or your similar situations. That's all the content I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. The latest Mr. Reddito producer, Christine Billings. Thank you so much for the support.